welcome you to the conversation segment of the Signature Show this Sunday. You know that in the past 2 weeks we've not reached you because of the elections. You know, they say it, when you see what is more important than the yams, you sell the band, isn't it? But we are back with you this Sunday, and we are back with a conversation that will be of great interest to you. In the next 45 minutes, we'll be conversing with the president, the current new president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. Once a media person, then he entered the trench in the workers' struggle, and he's now been caught in the whirlwind of Nigerian politics. Will there be contradictions? Will there be pulls here and pulls there? And so this afternoon I have as my guest, Comrade Joe Ajaero. Joe Ajaero is the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. Joe, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much.
You heard what I said. Will you be pulled this way and pulled that way? I know your background a little bit. Once a media person, so you began in the habit of critiquing situations, telling truth to power. Then you got into the labor trench. We have followed development until this time. You see the whirlwind of politics all around you. Is it likely that these centrifugal forces will pull in such a manner that you could lose your focus?
Well, I thank you very much for this critical question. My focus has been that of workers, the issue of worker centricity. And if I lose that focus, I will lose relevance. Even while serving as a journalist, I was still representing the interests of workers. First year I was employed in Vanguard newspapers. I became the assistant secretary of the union. After 2 years, I became the secretary of the Nigerian Union of Journalists in Vanguard. Then the chairman. And I got elected in about the convention as a national ex officio with Lanre Ogundipe as president and Smart Ademi as vice president. That's our team, then before I exited to go into full-time unionism. So that focus, you can trace it, has been there and up to today. So it's as old as my work practice. I did an NCE at a stage at Alvan College of Education. I was the student union PRO, cater for the interests of the students. So that has been my focus. If you check this process of almost 20 years or 25 years or whatever, my focus has remained constant. And I don't think it can change now that I'm getting old.
Well, now that you're getting old, you will not change. You've come in as the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. Every leadership has its agenda. And with your experience, you've seen the NLC. You've seen its strategic engagements. You've seen workers' position, their welfare and their position on national development. What agenda have you come with?
Well, incidentally, the NLC doesn't run personal agenda. The agenda of the Nigerian Labour Congress, interests, welfare of Nigerian workers and Nigerian people, critically, if you are talking of the broad-based agenda. And I used the word before, worker centricity. Now, that action that the policymakers will take that will affect the interests of Nigerian workers, we engage it, and then see how it will ameliorate, the sufferings of Nigerian workers, if not entirely eliminated. So nobody comes into the NLC with posters on agenda, I will do this, I will do that. When you come, you fit into the demands, of the Congress and how to tackle it. However, approaches, differ. The approach of Hassan Somono and the environment and circumstances that brought him up were different. He had to engage the Buhari government then, and then with the student movement still active, all those issues of killing students, whatever, he had to align himself with them and fought and set a foundation for which the Ali Shiroma came, and that period witnessed a bit of military intervention in the affairs of the NLC. It was rebuffed, and then we moved on. Pascal Abafiao came, one of the people that achieved most things in NLC, but went unsung. The Nigerians deceived some of us about, but now that he's no more, we have realized a lot of his potentials in terms of investment. This building, the Labour House, is Pascal Abafiao. The Labour City Transport is Pascal Abafiao. We used to have a Labour Bank, Lacom is Pascal Abafiao. The map, he has finished the project for Labour College, which could have been Pascal Abafiao. But we were told that he was bribed and that the Osborne House, Bangida did this, Bangida did that, that he owns everything in the world. When Pascal Abafiao died, we contributed money to buy a generator for his house. It was last year that NLC was able to buy a 3-bedroom for the family. He didn't own a house, not even one bedroom, in Abuja here, not even in Lagos. Now, but we were painted like that he did this. That was why I was talking of the environment. He came around the time of Abiola, and they said he backfired, but he equally went to the court to get a bail for Abiola, which Abiola rejected, claiming that there were conditions. So you can see his own background, his own environment, and how that environment, refused to play him up. And then Adam Soshomole came, very great leader, with bundle of courage, fought the military when NLC was banned, and emerged at a time, we were coming back to democracy, and fought, left all this bread and butter, and moved into those things that were affecting Nigerian workers, fuel increase, whatever. No matter how we try to look at it, he was one of the great leaders we have in Congress. My predecessor, Ayuba Waba, came, and held this place, even when this place was threatened. Even the division we had was leading one, and he was able to equally cement it, and brought the unity of the movement together, And then I will continue from there. Maybe when I finish my sojourn here, people should be able to evaluate me. So in whatever way you look at it, we have a common agenda to pursue. But events, when others were here, there was no issue of cash crunch. So I have to follow it up, on and on and on. So developments and circumstances differ. It's not how you're able to surmount it.
You spoke about the environment in which the leadership works. I want us to interrogate 3 environments really in this conversation. Let me look at first the physical environment of the Nigerian worker. Everywhere in the developed economies and societies, they take pains to create an enabling environment conducive for the worker to be at his best. That will be an environment that will determine the output of those under you, the labor. Will you take interest in it?
A lot of interest. Let me start from what happened yesterday when we issued a 7-day ultimatum for the federal government to provide cash, or our workers will stay at home. Now, you can see that there is no enabling environment for even workers to go to work, for them to eat. Now, that is why we have stepped in now to say, hey, you don't have to provide enabling environment. We equally talked about the fuel, scarcity and whatever. If you can't get fuel for those that have vehicles, you can't go to work. You will not be productive. If you're on a fuel queue for 2, 3, 4 hours, definitely you can't be productive in the office. If you can't even get at all, if the taxi drivers and buses can't get, you won't be able to move. All those issues, and that's the level of intervention we're having now. At least to that extent, provide enabling environment. And if you have said, everybody, bring your money to the bank, we want to change the color and all that, and we all sent our money to the bank, and when we now want to eat, we say, give us, we want 10,000, we want 20,000, or we want to pay our children's school fees. You say you are not going to give us. There's no way we'll perform. So we have to, first of all, interrogate that very environment and process, to enable it, be free, for us to practice for our members to function very well.
Now, as you spoke about this cash environment, I said to myself, this government cannot just decide to be mischievous. It must have some reasoning warranting this policy that is creating this terrible hardship. Comrade, you are no longer the ordinary Nigerian by virtue of your position, and therefore you can have back-end information, back-end engagement, back-end. Why are you doing this? Is it possible for the NLC at a little higher level to interrogate from the back end why this government is doing this, lest the NLC is accused of not having all the information and then moving in? Can you do that? Have you done that? This your 7-day ultimatum, is it warranted by the information you have?
Well, the issue is that even as at the time we were holding the conference that brought me into power, these issues have been tabled before the government, and there's no formal response to it. We have watched even the courts, play over this. There is a cause and effect in whatever we are doing. Whatever might be the best intentions of government in adopting this policy, the policy didn't say people cannot get their money. That was not what the policy was meant to achieve. But that is the outcome of the policy now. And you require, the state is not talking. You don't even need to talk to me as a person.
Look, comrade, have you tried as NLC?
As NLC had written letters.
And there's no response.
No. On this. They have even threatened that this thing is affecting us so much. I just took over about 4 weeks ago, and that's the thing I inherited. And like I told you before, NLC is a continuum, the leadership here. We have to follow up. There's nothing that was said, whether the fuel, whether the currency, that wasn't, the agenda of my predecessor, and we're following up with it. So it's not a question of whether I have, but as far as NLC is concerned, we even had programs, we had joint committees with federal government on the issue of fuel. The committees, the federal government adjoined the Senate and all that. So now to say that whether we'll be begging, knocking hand, whatever, when you have not briefed us, it is the duty of the state to brief its citizens on its programs, and policies. It's not, you don't beg for it. And for a buy-in by the citizens, including the labor union. I don't want to see the labor union as an elite group that must be, approached and briefed, and other Nigerians will not know. Now, between the Attorney General, the CBN, and the presidency, and we see even people in the same government talking at cross purposes. So it becomes difficult, for us to know what this program is all about. Whether the pains being inflicted on the common man is the actual intention. Nobody has even acknowledged, that this is affecting people, and we are working towards it. That informed our intervention and demand for our money. If I have money in the bank, I have the right to go and take even the whole money today, or tomorrow, or next, or take part of the money. And by the time you say you not give me, becomes a problem. And it's not compulsory that every Nigerian must have an account. So most of the people who went to buy products from, they don't have account. And you have to pay them with cash, no matter how small. And they themselves, since they don't have account, you can't pay them through the bank. And in most cases, for those that even have account and do transfer, they will do transfer days. It has not gone through. And there's a problem between buyers and sellers. It's getting out of hand. So somebody should be responsible for this and address the country, and solve the problem.
Comrade, let me leave this cash matter, but tangentially, let me go into the next environment, and that is the environment of remuneration. And pardon me if I say that all these years, what the NLC has tended to show is that the organized worker, the moment his issues are sorted out, all is well. Do you think so?
Has the problems of the organized worker ever been sorted out?
At least when government and those in governance respond to them.
To what extent? You don't give from the left and take from the right. Let's even look at the issue of minimum wage. Because since you are talking about remuneration, and we have a minimum wage of 30,000 today, has the problem of the worker been sorted out? When you can get a loaf of bread for maybe 1,000, and minimum wage is 30,000. So a worker should be on one loaf of bread with his family daily. No pure water to take it. He will not go to work. No transport fare, no house rent, children's school fees, whatever. Has the problem of the worker been sorted out? The inflation is jumping. The naira is devalued. Every other thing is just low. So you can see that in labor balance. That's why we say the struggle continues. Because the issue of the worker has never been addressed. If the worker has even, if we have a policy, some with social safety nets, assume we have a free transport system, medical system, the schools are free. You see that the workers' problem has been solved halfway. The children will attend school free. They will enter motor free. When they are sick, they go to hospital. These provisions are not here. So the workers' problem is compounded on and on and on. If you go into the cost of living index, then there's a problem. If you get a bag of rice, it's beyond the minimum wage. So the workers' problem in this country, in terms of remuneration, is zero. And it's pitiful. It's pitiable. And then I don't know what, when we say the workers' problem is addressed.
No, I'll still return to that remuneration environment. This is the signature show on AIT, and my guest this afternoon, Comrade Joe Ajaero, the president of Nigerian Labour Congress. Stay with us. We'll be back. Well, you're welcome back. Now, Comrade, before we went on that short break, you were talking about the remuneration environment. And I want to take you to a scenario. If I was a thug and I'm providing violence for politicians, I could just barrel my way into becoming a councillor. Maybe. Just barrel my way, talk my way into becoming a top-grade politician. And the moment I arrive at a political position, my circumstance, my economic circumstance changes because of the way remuneration is skewed in Nigeria. One, as a politician, I can make nonsense of somebody who holds a first class in the finest skills from the best of the universities in Nigeria. Nigeria's skilled manpower, critical for national development, don't seem to be accorded commensurate remuneration recognition. Whereas political positions are being so highly rewarded. The Nigerian worker, who is supposed to be at the center of national development with his skills and his application, seems not to be as considered as me, who becomes a visible thug and determines what happens at the beginning and end of every year's political cycle. NLC and Conrem Ajaero, do you consider this as an issue worthy of your engagement?
Well, all over history, people, sergeants, corporals, shot their way into leadership. Sergeant Doe, Pinochet, other world leaders.
Even the musketeers.
Yes, they just shot themselves either with the barrel of the gun and whatever. That doesn't legitimize, their leadership or otherwise. The same thing with Togri. People out of Togri, whatever, get up there, and they are paid. If you are talking of maybe somebody in the House of Representatives, it is so classified that by the time somebody gets to that level, it should be of, somebody that is of high intellect, somebody that has passed through the Rubicons to end that office. And that is what it is. I still believe that is what it is. But there are exceptions where people, manipulate their way to such level.
Conrad, let me intervene. The critical issue I'm raising there, I just use Togri for my own personal description as a process. But the political office remuneration is so skewed against the worker.
Yeah, but I'm trying to explain to you that it's our system. Anywhere you have all this presidential system of government is usually high. If we have a system of government that makes even you are going to National Assembly part-time, you're a lawyer, you have your chambers, you're a medical doctor, you have your clinic, and then you go to the National Assembly either once or twice a month, and you sit, you deliberate on issues, you go back to your work, you get sitting allowance. That's it. Or by the time you make it, even when the time they are on recess, they are being paid this amount. It's 40. It's not sustainable. So, and it is not based on what the Salaries and Wages Commission are coming up with. It's out of it. And when I say it's out of it, it's not like there is a system that now say this is the way it is. Well, people now negotiate their wages. The ones in the executive determine what they call security vote. That is why if there is crisis in some areas, some people will fuel it more so that they will spend more money in terms of security vote. In terms of job, analysis and evaluation, you discover that if you go into it, you discover these jobs can never attract
kind of remuneration.
That kind of remuneration. No, you can sit down with salaries and wages, with a Bureau of Statistics and Labor, and we'll analyze it, look at, input, output. You discover that they don't earn it. But that's the government of Mosul. They are the people that make the laws, they allocate this amount of money to themselves. It is not normal. And now by the time, if you go back to the Togri or whatever you are talking of, it is difficult, and I have seen it, even from the way some of those who graduate with. The ones that made first class remain in the school to be graduate assistant, to be lecturer and all that. The people that couldn't finish from school are the people that go to carry ballot boxes. And before you know it, they're in the House of Rep, they're in the House of Assembly. So it's not based on your intellect or whatever. It's based on the route. You want to choose. And then the issue of, a value system, orientation in the country has changed so much. You have a first-class material who is even a PhD holder, but he doesn't have a job for 10 years. If he's from the village, no child will take him as a role model. It's that man that has a hammer jeep, and that's their role model, and everybody wants to take that route. So it's unfortunate, even the system we have, the level of education we have, and remuneration, if you put it together, is 40. Definitely, that's my...
Comrade, to some people outside, including myself, this is a national worry. Is it a worry for the NLC, and does NLC intend to engage, to interrogate, so that there could be a national conversation to enable us step back and find the right model, the right remuneration model that serves us best?
Well, we don't shy away. Our main job is this engagement. We don't shy away from such. But there must be willingness, for conversation by Nigerian state. Or else you'll be talking to yourself. And you can see that there seems to be a whole lot of monologue, going on. I was a member of the Jonathan's confab, and I can tell you with much regret that if that document was released, Nigeria would have been better today. But that document, had a still died, without raising its head. Nobody even tried to look at what is there. And there is no other, body put together to even look at where are we going. Because we treated for almost all sectors, energy, power, oil and gas, labor, looked at it before talking of even the political aspect of it, and the type of politics we can look at. But they say dumped it. And if you are dumping a position, you have to adopt another position. So there is no position. And I've asked this question, especially from my constituency, the power sector. I said that the Jonathan government privatized. And everybody here can tell you, even in this interview, you can see that the light is off and on in a federal capital territory. How many times? Now, what is the policy directive of the Buhari government on this? Let's assume that this is Jonathan's government. For 8 years, they privatized, and it has failed. Now, what is the policy? And it's the policy of PDP before that failed. Now, what is the policy of APC in this direction? Because no country develops, industrially without the power sector. And there is none. So it's like they are all agreed on the policy of PDP and APC. They are unanimous, especially on the issue of power and some other issues. So it continues that way. So if you come in as a government, you have to review what is in existence before your arrival, and then see how you can improve on it. If you ask me, the same 4,000 megawatts we have been having from Passenger up to today, that's what we're having, and the situation is getting worse. So that is the point I'm making. You have to be open for dialogue, for discussion, so that we can look at it. And then you can bring the best heads in government and say, okay, can you interface with ordinary Nigerians? Or can we have a retreat and look at how best to do this? Nobody is doing that. And Labour does not, I repeat, now finish a program and impose it on government. It doesn't go that way. We have members of the National Assembly. We have the Senate. We have various committees of both houses. Up to this moment, I wouldn't say this is their policy direction.
Comrade, unfortunately for Nigerian Labour Congress, it is a very critical stakeholder in national development. A very critical stakeholder. So even when we hold these conversations, we cannot but call out NLC and say, look, what ought to be done? And let me take you to your own constituency, the electricity constituency, which you just mentioned now. In a conversation with some of my own reporters, I said, has it occurred to us that every development in the electricity sector has been imported? Yet somebody said to me, we have some of the finest technicians and engineers, critical thinkers, and innovative minds in that sector. And I said, no, I don't believe it. And I said, why I do not believe it is that if we keep importing solutions, administrative solutions, engineering and technical solutions for our challenges in that sector, you cannot tell me that you have some of the finest. And I have examples to give, comrade. Nigeria defense industry was established the same year as the Brazilian defense industry was established. Today, Nigeria imports defense equipment from Brazil. Today, Nigeria imports solutions from Korea, whether it is South or North Korea, I do not know which. Our underwater welders are coming from South Korea. Spare parts for our turbines are brought in from Japan and from Korea. And yet we have the finest engineers and technicians. Does that sound reasonable? And comrade, that leads me to the question. Beyond the remuneration environment, is Nigeria Labour Congress interested in the skills and manpower development environment? Because that is what is going to drive national development. In making demands on the establishment, do you consider such demands necessary?
Well, I think where you needed to look at is governance and leadership. Coming to electricity, we have some of the best engineers. Twice or thrice that the Akusu Dam in Ghana collapsed, we rescued it from here, and many others. Check Nigerians, engineers, medical doctors all over the world. I even trained here before leaving. They are the best. But we don't have inspiring leadership. If you go to Brazil, Lula was one of us. In fact, it wasn't. It was just the iron and steel kind of metal product president of the union there, and he brought over over how many million people out of poverty by his programs and action. And that country started doing what they were not doing before. The government that took over anyway jailed him, but the people came back to him and brought him back because of that gap in their constitution. And he's joined a third term now because you have an inspiring leader that can tell everybody, let's go, and we move. But when you have people whose job is to think of what they can get from a system, they will not do it with the manpower you have. Some organizations these days have even imported janitors, people who clean toilet, whatever. And nobody cares about our expatriate quota. On and on and on. That doesn't mean that the best hands are not here. You can go to the energy sector, petroleum sector, and they're telling you they are importing finished products. The fact remains that these products are being refined by young men in Niger Delta area. They are selling it. Go there, you see, even with drone, it's not rocket science. So why are you now importing? And I have said this in various conversations, that those people who say they are into illegal refining, there is a lie. Legalize it. Now you can even form them into cooperative. You can even ask them to come and register. You can form a regulatory framework that will look at the product, whether it meets up to standard. And there are over 6 universities producing graduates in petrochemical industry. And you think that they will just keep quiet? Bring them together. You can even make money from there. You register every year, you take your license for you to operate those areas. Those guys will get the number of liters we need in this country. But they will not. So that some people will export and import and tell us to pay money, and that has continued. And unfortunately, if you're a leader, once in a while, you can wear your t-shirt and move out. And even in the market, you ask them, what's the cost of this? Because a leader is like somebody that is imprisoned somewhere. The people around you can hold you hostage, manufacturing enemies to you. This person is this. When they wanted to the private sector, like you said, we fought for almost 10 years, trying for them to see the implication of what they were. And they said they were privatizing, that they must get technical experts. The person must get financial ability, that will be FDI, foreign direct investment and management. When they privatize, we didn't see any $1 into the economy of Nigeria. What we saw was borrowing money from Nigerian banks and then using it to buy Nigeria electricity companies. And that created a lot of liquidity problem with the financial institutions. Since they didn't have the capacity to even pay back the money they borrowed, most of the electricity companies today have been taken over by banks. Kano, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, Benin, Ibadan, name them, have been taken over by banks. And banks are now running the electricity companies. So when is the expertise coming from banks? Why will a bank run an electricity company? And on, even Abuja electricity here has been taken over by banks. That's what we're seeing. Despite the advice we gave then. And since that time till now, the generating companies that were licensed, none has built one power plant to add to what is going to the national grid. Not everything is static. I think, and the people in charge have not said, hey, wait a minute. Because the MOU was that after every 5 years, we're going to review the process. They have not said, okay, let us sit and review this process, whether it is working or not. And I have written, then as the General Secretary of the district, can we look at this process? The BP is not talking. The Regulatory Commission, NEC, is not talking. Everybody is just silent, and people are suffering. Tariff has moved almost to 500%, something you never allowed NEPA to do. And they have given them subvention of about 2 trillion, and you sold a place for 400 billion, and you are giving them 2 trillion to run.
Something you never did for NEPA.
That's what I'm saying. They never even allowed them to increase tariff to ask for small economic whatever. They didn't. And then those ones, you never gave them any subvention. So these are issues because you are talking about as if, it's we refusing to perform. If the leadership is right, they will inspire leadership. They will give direction. If the leadership of this, and when I talk leadership, it could be leadership of NEPA, leadership of whatever. If they are directionless, if they are rudderless, what you'll be hearing is the same thing. If you have 4,000 megawatts today, and we are talking of an international standard of 1,000 megawatts to 1 million people, and you have more than 200 million people, and you are talking of 4,000 megawatts from Obasanjo's era to now, it's shameful. That Nigeria is the country that is having the worst case of power poverty. We are down there. So on and on and on. So who should ask questions? Who should now say, let us have a conscious master plan, that every year, let us bring 500 megawatts, conservatively. The next year we'll bring 500. Then the country will be growing, demand will be going, supply will be growing. But here, demand is suppressed. Supply is suppressed, and demand is growing, on and on and on. There is no availability, there is no accessibility, and we continue to blame game. It cannot. Things cannot change overnight. You can't say, let there be light. Unless you have another, power plant you are commissioning tomorrow. And it takes an average of about 3 years, to commission a power plant. If there is none you are building this year, there is none you will commission in the next 3 years. If there is none you are building next year, there is none you will commission the next 4 years, in that order. And we stay and be looking. So that is the problem we are having. Leadership, if we get it right, leadership that will ask questions, leadership can even fire those that are not doing well, and replace them, following due process. Things can get better.
Comrade, leadership. NLC somehow in the current order, Nigerian order, has found itself in politics. There's a party that is called Labour Party. Is NLC part of that Labour Party?
The certificate of that Labour Party is in this office. Good. All over the world, you have Labour Party. As of that of Britain, GDP, whatever, owned by the trade unions for contestation of power to improve and further the welfare of their members. Because even with our motto, labor creates wealth. After creating wealth, others decide how to administer that wealth. After baking the cake, others exclude labor. And we keep on begging. Give us minimum wage. Give us this. Give us that. Give us 8 hours work. It has been on and on. And that is what informed labor all over the world. Even if they are not answering Labour Party, you will see them aligning with those parties whose minimum principle or ideology is social democracy. And that is what happened in the case of Labour. Here, the people in authority didn't want Labour Party to be registered. And we registered the Party for Social Democracy. And after that, we had to change the name at a convention to Labour Party. And we are involved. The only thing, and that is clear, is that I will not abandon my job as NLC president to be campaigning. I will not allow that.
Now, let me tell you, I'm going to interject,
go ahead.
comrade, because
Go ahead.
when in the last series of elections the Nigeria Labour Congress held, Labour had an issue in Imo State.
Yes.
And there was so much of name calling.
Yes.
One of my colleagues said to me, maybe it is because NLC is now partisan that the Imo State government sees it as a challenger. Does the Imo State government see you as leadership of an opposition party trying to mess things up for it?
The Imo State government, I don't want to use some words here because I'm from Imo State. There are 36 states and Abuja that knew that Labour is in party, and they're not messing them. It's only in Imo State government that sees Labour as opposition. Imo State is the state that has the worst anti-Labour policy. Unfortunately, I can't come from that state and go to another state without removing the speck in my eye. I will lose the moral right to challenge that process elsewhere. We had the chairman in Imo State, Chilab, and because he was not buying into the suppression, they had agreement where they identified over 15,000 workers the Imo State government called ghost workers. The previous government did not call them. The government of Rochas did his own biometrics and was paying. The government of Emeki Edouan, though short-lived, throughout the period he was there, he did biometrics and was paying. They identified the real workers. The government of the current government did his biometrics, and at the end of the day, by a joint effort, they discovered that this number, you are not paying them. Pay them. They are not ghost workers. This number are not ghost pensioners. Pay them. Since 2021, he was not paying them. The chairman then resisted. They went after him. Send their correspondence to the Imo State Secretariat of the NLC. He destroyed everything and asked Talks to take over that place. Talks to the governor, current governor, Hope Uzodinma, and asked Talks to take over the Imo State Secretariat and appointed somebody else as NLC chairman. We say, no, you don't appoint somebody. He took the former president of NLC, Ayuba Waba, to go there and to say, no, this person is not we don't know him. After that, he decided to now go after the Chilab. The guy abdicated, had to run from the state. And we now call one of his vice to still please act. And that one was so terrorized that he couldn't do a letter to say, oh, God, beg, pay these people. Between that time and the next election that was taking place in the 36 states and Abuja, and the election was on there. And the Commissioner of Information called one of the contestants and said, the governor said, you must step down. That one says, my union that brought me, I will get back to my union and my family. He said, if you don't, I will report to the governor that you don't want it. And they had that conversation. Unfortunately for the commissioner again, the following day he called me and started raising these issues. I advised him that I know that government will want one person or the other. I said, but you guys are even lucky because the two people contesting are from the Imo State Civil Service. So they are your staff. But we will not allow forcing somebody to step down. If he loses the election, he goes. allow them to contest the election. We provide the enabling environment for them to run. We talked, we organize the reception for you that say, please, keep that crap. Let them go for election. Go ahead and support the person you are supporting. But you can't dictate for us to say this person you must run. Then when they sent talks, the following day, all the tax and everything there, the talks took it away and tried to disperse people. The workers resisted it and said election was sold. They now send uniformed people and disperse the election, the people that came there, and they said it was ordered from above. Now, what is the state government supposed to do in that instance? They turned the following day and started attacking me. That some politicians in Imo are using me. All politicians in Imo State put together, none of them can tell me the direction to go, including the current governor. I don't call him. I have not been to Imo State government house all my life, and it's deliberate. In running my unionism, I don't mix it up. Ask the ministers of power and others you have today. Throughout Fashola was there, I told him I will not be to your office. The current one, I don't go there. I don't mix up. The 3 presidential candidates you have that ran this election, I don't have their number, I don't talk with them. Because I want to do my work. And somebody is in a way there saying politician. Which of them is the politician? Can he call me? Can he use me? Instead of addressing these issues, over 30-something thousand workers, you are not, and pensioners, you are not paying. And they are dying. You don't feel it. And the commissioner now went in, by virtue of his job as a labor commissioner, held a meeting and go back to you that these are the agreements. Do I sign? You say, don't sign. The next hour you sacked him. Because you don't want peace. He thinks that the crisis will be on so that they will shift the election, for a time that will be convenient for all of them. It may not go that way. So there is no issue of Labour being opposition, anywhere. Labour Party is doing their job, and we had a policy that, based on the Section 40 of the Constitution, a worker has the right to belong to any union of his choice. Most of our members, the person contesting in KB, is my colleague, former deputy. Is contesting under APC. Some contesting under PDP, whatever. But we registered Labour Party. We have never made a rule that everybody must be a member of Labour Party. So I don't know where they are getting that vision. But you see, there's nobody in Imo State today that is not opposition, that they are not tagging, that is fighting the government, that they are not arrested. And they have been threatening me that they will bomb my house, and I've been laughing. At this age, you are threatening me with all those things. Hope was nowhere when we fought Abacha and some of us were detained. I can't be talking on the welfare of Nigerians, and he's talking, and be calling me names, sending some miscreants to be calling me names. It's not done. Is that how to govern a state? So everybody must be pocketed. So let him deny that he didn't scatter it. Let him deny that he didn't destroy the secretariat. Let him deny that the former chairman of NLC didn't run away under a terrible condition. Let him deny that he has paid these people. Call even in one village that how many people are being owed. The headmistress of the primary school I attended is owed salary. It's among the people declared ghost teachers. And he's still there today and working for 20-something months. And even wrote her recently to come for interview for promotion, which means they acknowledge that the person is in the system.
Yet she's a ghost worker.
Yes, the person is a ghost worker. In Ubuta local government alone, there are about 600 workers in the local government that are tagged ghosts. Some people got their last pay in 2020 up to now. And then you are talking from all across purposes. And you think I will leave you on that? It's not done. No governor in Nigeria tries that. No governor that suppresses people, suppresses workers, intimidate them to run. The ones that win local government election in Norge, local government, they transfer them to other local government. On daily basis, harassment and intimidation. And you still come out where Nigerians are and you talk. So Ajaero is supporting your opposition. Which opposition? Which opposition will even talk to me? Can he buy me? So that aspect is an aspect when people have something to hide, that they will be talking. As for me, it's a no-no. Imo and Abia were the worst states in terms of workers' welfare. And the previous week, we were in Abia. And they were forced to sign agreement. Health Management Board there from 17 months to about 30-something months. Every week, they bring posters of obituary. The next week, they remove that and bring another one. And I'll be answering NLC president and be watching. And you tell me that it's opposition. What kind of opposition is that? So,
Comrade Ajaero, let us not be. Thank you very much for coming to the conversation.
Thank you.
You have a great responsibility, and I wish you well.
God bless you. Thank you very much.
Well, that's our conversation for this Sunday. My name never changes. I'm Wabos Njoko. Good afternoon.